The American F-35 isn't just a fighter jet. It is the most advanced air combat ecosystem on Earth. So why might the US sell it to Turkey at the risk of its secrets falling into Russian hands?
Whether or not we do that, I haven't totally made up my mind. We have a very strong relationship with Turkey. You know, it's a very big country.
What's so surprising about Trump wanting to hand Turkey the keys to the world's most powerful stealth fighter is that it was Trump himself who decided during his first term that this would simply be too great a national security risk. Congress would back the White House on this, and the decision that has stood now for the better part of a decade is that Turkey cannot be trusted with the F-35. Why not? And what's changed? The Trump administration, the first one, was always crystal clear with Turkey. We'll only let you fly the F-35 if we can trust you with its secrets, but we don't trust you if you insist on installing Russian air defenses capable of shooting F-35s down. Let me show you the Russian S-400. It's not just one missile, it's an entire missile defense system. According to Russia's state-owned arms export agency, it can hit targets from thousands of miles away, and under ideal circumstances, moving targets like ballistic missiles and, say, fighter jets, traveling at speeds approaching 5 kilometers per second, which makes the speed of sound seem slow. In 2019, Turkey bought this air defense system from Russia, and Washington did not like this.
A country cannot operate an advanced Russian air defense system and simultaneously field the West's most sensitive fifth-generation fighter. Their adversary systems pointed at each other's vulnerabilities.
Trump's White House 7 years ago would issue this statement: the F-35 cannot coexist with a Russian intelligence collection platform that will be used to learn about its advanced capabilities.
Much of the F-35 strength lies in its stealth capabilities. We seek only to protect the long-term security of the F-35 program.
And at this point, it's probably helpful to explain why the F-35 is so coveted and prized and protected. It is the world's most advanced stealth fighter. Its design makes it nearly invisible to modern radar, allowing it to strike before anyone knows it's there. But its greatest strength isn't in a head-to-head dogfight. The F-35 is what's called a multi-role fighter because of how it handles information. Its sensors, its computing power, its ability to communicate and network, linking air, land, sea, space, and cyber operations. It is a war hub, like a football quarterback who sees everything. Its very presence changes how wars are fought.
It is almost a flying command center. The technological aspects of it, combined with its stealth capabilities, are what make it very superior.
And among other things, the F-35 was designed to counter and destroy missile defense systems like the Russian S-400. But here's the problem. Bear in mind, when Turkey was buying the S-400, it wasn't just buying a bunch of launchers. It was buying Russian expertise, Russian maintenance, Russian operators. So, the thinking went, if you had Russian defenses operating so close to where F-35s are housed, where they take off, where they fly, there is a mountain of data to be collected there. And if that data, those vulnerabilities and weaknesses, were to make their way back to Russia, this could be a problem, not just for Turkey or for the US, but for the entire F-35 program and everyone who took part.
So the US concern is that the S-400 could help Russia learn how to defeat the F-35. And US officials said that NATO allies and F-35 partners were unified in opposing Turkey fielding this Russian system.
And this is where it's important to understand the F-35 isn't just a plane, it's an international partnership. The United States and 19 allied countries, they don't just buy and use the F-35. Some of them do. That's these countries here. But these other 8 in the partnership, they actually help make the F-35. In Canada alone, 110 different companies have added to the F-35 supply chain over a period of nearly 30 years. Turkey was at that level, a development partner, until the S-400 crisis. That's when the US banned, by law, through an act of Congress, the export of the F-35 to Turkey. The original plan was for Turkey to buy more than 100 of these jets, but in the end, it would receive 0. Turkish F-35 personnel, even Turkish F-35 parts, were unwelcome in the United States. Assembly lines were wound down. Turkey was excluded from the F-35 program in almost every imaginable way, and the planned 100-plus fighter jets Turkey was going to buy, Lockheed Martin was already looking for other customers.
It was a NATO country that had acquired a Russian system, okay, a potential, enemy, antagonist, whatever you want to call it. This was a big deal, yes.
But then Trump changed his mind.
It's a great plane. It's currently the best plane by far. And it's certainly something we will consider, yeah.
What explains this? A lot of the coverage I'm seeing out there seems to suggest Trump is being reckless in suddenly looking for a way to loop Turkey back into the F-35 program, in spite of the whole S-400 saga. But what's been true the entire time is that Turkey is a major NATO partner.
Turkey was always at the forefront, for example, of NATO operations in Afghanistan, and very willing to take military risks that other NATO member states were not willing to take at that time. Turkish forces were always ready and available when needed, and that's an important operational confidence in Turkey.
And if I were to ask you, which NATO partner has the biggest military? You'd probably say the US. But if I were to ask you, who has the second biggest? Would you say Germany, Poland, the UK, France? It's Turkey.
Turkey has the second largest army in NATO, but the largest NATO army in Europe is the Turkish military.
Geopolitically, it's also worth pointing out how Turkey is in a very unique position. If you've ever studied a map of where Eastern Europe meets Western Asia, you'll know Turkey is Europe's front door to the Middle East. But what's a little less obvious is how it controls the only maritime gateway between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, which means NATO countries enter the Black Sea bordering Russia through Turkish waters, and Russia's warships deploy outwards through those same channels.
So the Europeans are starting to think, well, we may need to integrate them more closely because of Putin, right? Since they're so worried about Putin.
And Turkey has already acted as a bulwark against Russia during its war on Ukraine, using its authority to cut off Russian reinforcements seeking to redeploy from abroad closer to home. And the US knows how helpful this is for the West. These would be among the many considerations in driving towards an F-35 deal. But there's also a timing window that's important.
We are great friends. The president has done an incredible job. Turkey has become, under the president, a very powerful country militarily.
Trump just really seems to like Turkey's leader, and in a way that the previous administration under Biden didn't.
I think that Trump himself has a very close personal relationship with President Erdogan. He admires strong leaders, strongmen figures.
He actually has said in an interview, he said, the meaner the leader is, the better he gets along with.
And that observation about meanness is actually relevant here, because Trump pulling Turkey into the fold might also be about how Turkey tends to operate along the edges. Turkey is not a model Western democracy like most NATO countries. For example, Turkey has elections, but the president, Recep Erdogan, has been in power in one form or another since 2003, almost a quarter century.
This is a time when Turkey was really marching to its own drum.
Journalists in Turkey can face severe systemic repression. They are oftentimes censored, prosecuted. So are critics of Turkey's leadership, and political opponents too, always mindful that what they say can be a source of great risk. If you're in opposition, there are limits. And the fact of Turkey having bought Russian S-400s in the first place, despite the US warning them not to, it was a complicated decision with more history behind it. But minimally, it gives you some insight into how Turkey hasn't always seen the NATO alliance as the be-all and end-all. They're a bit more independent than that. And sometimes that independence pushes them into the arms of Russia or China.
If it is not allied with NATO, that would certainly be very counterproductive for alliance interests, Canadian interests, American interests. I think the Russians and the Chinese would benefit by that. It needs to be kept in the fold for the benefit of the geopolitical power relationship.
So is Turkey an important ally? Yes, but we still haven't answered how exactly Trump figures Turkey can keep its Russian S-400s, but also receive American F-35s without creating a huge intelligence breach that compromises global security. The answer to that question, we don't quite know. Turkey could dismantle its S-400s and order up American air defense instead. It could ship its S-400s to another country, but it might be hard to do that without burning its relationship with Russia, especially if that other country is Ukraine or a NATO country. Or maybe Trump just waves his executive magic wand, as he has done so often in the past, and risks creating a constitutional crisis to get what he wants. Who knows? But in the end, the question comes down to, can Turkey be trusted? And maybe the only person whose answer truly matters is Donald Trump.